All right, let's go over the process that I basically did when implementing this and basically trying to share a bit my thoughts. So this is the design that I received from my colleague. As we can see, it's 16 by 9, so basically for desktop. The aspect ratio, and starting on the top, basically I can instantly see this menu here. Of course, on desktop this works great. However, when we want to display this on a phone, this is impossible. So that was the first thing I noticed, that I will need some kind of menu, drop-down menu for this. And then when we go down, we see this two column style here with the text and the buttons, and on the other side the picture. But on top of that, we have this very let's call it nice S shape sort of going through the screen. So I thought also this is going to be a challenge to implement. Going further down, this seems doable, even though these pictures are maybe a bit big, and the problem is they will not be able to fit, facing each other. So one would probably have to go up and the other down. Going down, this is probably going to work. These we just have to break into two lines, basically, or two lines. And then we get to in my opinion, the most interesting part, which is this. It looks nice in my opinion, but it's just very hard to implement. So we see there, we once again have these S shapes here. However, there's no way this is gonna fit on a mobile in one sort of exactly like this. So however, I didn't know this before I implemented it, so I just ran into it and was like, yay, this is gonna be fun. And then I discovered this doesn't work. So looking at our or the first implementation, or the first thing that I basically did, or how it looked like, luckily due to Netlify, we can go back and watch these. So desktop, right, looks perfect, looks like the design. And then we get a bit smaller, as we see here already, which is in my opinion too soon. This is like tablet size. We have our first breakpoint basically, and this transforms into a very horribly looking, again, this is the first deployment, it gets better, trust me, a horrible burger menu, sort of drop down menu. This is still the same, and now we do, even though there's a bug here, but let's ignore these things for now. And then we have, here we have sort of the next thing, these become stacked, and then we keep going smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and this is basically phone now, right? And well, apart from the text here being looking horribly small compared to this part, which is kind of okay actually, this button doing like a return to the line, and this picture being scaled, of course, that's, kind of cool, but in this case it's not, because we want to because we don't want this to be this small. At some point, we don't want it to scale anymore. Otherwise, it's going to be, invisible at some point, right? Okay, there's no phone that's this small probably, but still, we don't want to have that. Going down, so that's already a disaster. Going down, this part actually kind of worked better than I was expecting it to. Even though this looks kind of horrible. There's no spacing here and so on, because we added like a screenshot here. But when we go down, we see that these rows become like or these columns become stacked here, and basically that leads to the pictures not being in front of each other anymore, which kind of fixes the issue, even though it still looks horrible. This part, as I said already, this is probably like one of the easier parts. As we can see, we just do like a stacking of the columns basically. And then we get to the most interesting part, which is this beautiful S shape. And here we can see, as soon as I basically, this still works, we're still like at a tablet. This is still desktop probably. And then this was the first breakpoint. I think this is now the tablet size, sort of. Oopsie. And then we start going smaller and smaller and smaller, and we see this is getting longer and longer. And there's more and more screen empty space. And this is not centered inside of that, the text and the button. And so we keep going. We're still at tablet. We keep going, and Here, um, this is for the phone, we start to see that things fall apart. This is due to basically this being implemented in a very hacky way, having this being a white element with a green background, and it has like a rounded shape, so that's why this is one element. But however, we get like the space in between these elements, and then if you go smaller, this space becomes bigger and bigger. And then if we go to phone, we have this situation, which is a complete disaster, and we see first of all, our shapes are completely gone. Like they disappeared completely, and they're like stacked on each other. This doesn't make sense because it's under it now. This is at least still next to it, the text next to the green stuff, and the button. But as you can see, this is horrible. So then we can go to the first sort of deployment that I did. Well, because this was only a preview, I actually didn't deploy it. Was the first deployment. So as you can see here, I already do this a bit too early still, and this is still buggy. But we can see now in a second that this happens as soon as we hit the breakpoint, basically for phone size, or even tablet, I'm not sure. We see that the picture finally moves down, and we have a bit of a redesign, sort of, because well, let's not look at the bottom there, but we basically see that this text that was here jumps to the green, so it's a redesign, sort of. And unfortunately, this was necessary because there was just no other way of doing it like this with this, considering exactly this design, right? But this is at least better and doesn't hurt our eyes as much as the other one. At least we can read it, so I would say the UX is good, or better. However, well, the design itself is still horrible. We go down here to this part. It doesn't work for some reason anymore. Don't ask me why this doesn't work that well anymore, but yeah, we have an issue there. I'm sure I fixed it at some point. And then we go down to our very interesting part here. So this was another case where I was just like, no, I can't do this. I talked to my colleague, and then I suggested doing this thing here, which is, well, a redesign. Again, it's not the same element, which is sad. But as we can see, this is readable. This is okay. I'm sure there's like things that are not great about this, but from a first sight, this looks pretty good. And we can read everything. I mean, apart from the contrast and all, I think this is pretty good. My point, therefore, is that this retrofit approach, well, might be okay in some cases, but I just discovered that the big downside of it is that some things you can just not implement the way they are meant to be in the design. Therefore, I think the skill that I just sort of tried to demonstrate to spot what is doable and what is not doable and what makes sense and what doesn't is a very important skill to have for even an SE, of course for designers as well, but also and especially for software engineers. I think it is also a skill that can be heavily developed with time. I did one website, I believe that, and I already gained a lot of knowledge, so I believe that when you do this at like 10 times, you become really fluent in it.